Howdy, my name is Faith Martin. I am a non-thesis first-year master's student at Texas A&M University, enrolled in Dr. Robert Strong's ALEC 640 class, and today we will be going over a pollinator attraction resource hub. This is to be utilized as a reusable learning objective, so stay tuned on my take of what that can look like. The purpose of this video is for the objective stated above. However, in the spirit of diversified learning, it is truly meant to be a resource hub that far outgrows the confines of the coursework it could be used for. It could be used for topics of pollinator gardens, entomology, native plant species, and so much more. Honestly, the boundaries are endless. Please understand that this is simply an example of how this resource hub could be used, and to reinvent your own version of the steps in this video to best suit your own needs. In the example we are observing for the purpose of this video lesson assignment, students enrolled in a horticultural class will establish a pollinator-friendly small garden or potted plant plan that has the potential to attract at least 2 different types of pollinators, using native plants to improve native biodiversity and overall environmental health within the surrounding community for at least one season to later sell to community members. The RLO objective is to establish an understanding of a resource hub within the field of education presented in the form of a horticultural lesson plan and assignment to such a degree that it can be modified to fit individual goals. In other words, the RLO objective is the overarching idea of this video. However, I'm putting it into the terms of a lesson plan in the horticultural class simply so it will be easier to understand how to utilize it in different ways that a resource hub could be used other than as something in business or your workplace where you would normally see it. Okay, so in order to put some perspective into the innovative resource hub we are about to explore, let's break it down in terms of the father of innovation, Everett and Rogers principles. Innovation. So the innovation in this particular example is going to be utilizing pollinator-specific planning resources to optimize environmental health via a resource hub. So the resource hub itself is innovation, but in this specific case, we're utilizing pollinator-specific planning resources. So let's have that in our mindset. Next up, we have communication channels. So how do we talk about it? It's going to be lecture, website links, visual means via PowerPoint, in-person help, and step-by-step instructions. So I set this up to where it would be an in-person class discussion. However, this could be done online, it could be done remotely. In the times of our ever-changing world, that's kind of fun and useful. Next up, on our third aspect of the innovation, we have time. So, initial intro to the project is going to be 45 minutes or so. That's just to explain what it is, what it could be, ask questions, things of that nature. Next, time to work on the project. I would say 3 to 4 class periods, but that can vary based on your class. And then if you're doing this online, it'd be like the video's duration after a lot of stopping and starting. I understand there's a lot of online things happening today, so just keep that in mind. And then as far as social systems, again, I've set this up to where it'd be for a high school level horticultural class. You'll see why later when you learn more about me. But that way it would be a lot more useful for me in the future, as well as be more adaptable. Next, just remember this is an RLO because it is a lesson plan that can be changed and adapted in many ways to fit the needs of more in-depth and basic levels of instruction within horticultural science. So you can kind of edit it, make it your own, but the base outline of the reusable learning object is here. This could be done in person or remotely as well, which in our ever-evolving world of technology is quite useful in my opinion. So, knowing that, let's jump into using this RLO as a pollinator resource hub today. So, pollinators. Why do we need them? What's their purpose? What are they? Why should I care about little flying bugs' purpose that actually make people, like me, dart and twist to get away from them? Well, they're actually pretty important to our ecosystems, like it or not, and they really do help with that whole wonderful circle of life thing. Pollinators are defined as anything that helps carry pollen from the male part of the flower, or stamen, to the female part of the flower, or another flower, or the stigma. If you're still confused, pollination is the act of transferring pollen grains from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma. The goal of every living organism, including plants, is to create offspring for the next generation. One of the ways that plants can produce offspring is by making seeds. Seeds contain the genetic information to produce a new plant. Some examples of pollinators are bees, wasps, butterflies, flies, beetles, hummingbirds, and even small mammals like bats. That's pretty cool, right? These small little creatures have a big role in their ecosystem. They enhance plant reproduction, which means without these little guys, no flowers, no fruit, no food. In a way, they're the carriers of the power for a plant species to reproduce or not. That is, if everything is healthy otherwise. Bees especially have been crowned as the golden child of the pollinator world for many reasons. However, they are used for quite a bit in agricultural crop production, especially in greenhouses quite a bit, which I found quite interesting. Agricultural crops are important because many U.S. greenhouses use bees to pollinate their crops and even encourage beehives to take residency inside greenhouses. Many might think this would be crazy. However, bees, especially bumblebees, can live in harmony with humans' agricultural pursuits if there is some mutual respect present. Words are hard. As you can see, having bees and/or other pollinators near important crops or flowers could be very beneficial for their growth and an effective yield. So today we are learning how to plan this objective on a very small scale. As you can see, the yellow and white boxes towards the bottom are where the beehives are housed in this greenhouse for tomato plants. All of the resources used here are linked below in the description as well of this video. Again, you can modify this to fit whatever your teaching or learning needs require for a variety of topics, but having this as a set list of resources is a great way for those creative juices to start flowing, especially with planning a large project such as creating a pollinator garden with native species. So, in this Pollinator and Plant Resource Hub, you will find a variety of different links that will lead you to find a wonderful assortment of information at your disposal. Starting with the orange box, you will find the PDF by howardnature.org that helps you plan your garden around environmental conditions. Use your scenarios heavily with this, which we're going to get to later. For example, if the scenario states that it is in a marshland, you might want to plant something that likes water. Just a tidbit. So, do you have wet soil where you want to put your pollinator garden? Is it dry? Do you get a lot of sunshine there that might be drying? Does it rain a lot? Do you have hot or cold weather? Etc., etc. There's a million different combinations. Now remember, this PDF is based out of Maryland, but it does have pollinator-specific plant recommendations, which I find really, really interesting. So like, what does this specific bee like? Things of that nature. Moving to the purple box, this is going to lead you to a resource for Texas-specific garden planting. Texas is a very large state, and there is a huge amount of biodiversity from even one county to the next, much less what we consider North, South, and Central Texas. It's a great place to choose plants, and then use your resources to see what might be attracted to said plants in your area. Again, this is a resource hub. Or if they might be better grown elsewhere. This site has a ton of information. Play around with it. The specific page I have linked is not the only important thing here. Moving to the green box, this is a super cool tool I was excited to discover. This native plant finder allows you to put in your zip code and it tells you what plants are native to that area. It's very plant health savvy in my humble opinion. It allows you to also see what species are attracted to it. This is useful for both pollinator attraction and to see what pests you might want to watch out for. As much as we love our pollinators, they do start out as caterpillars at some point. Well, certain species do. And if you don't want that eating your vegetable plants, just watch out for that. Next, we're moving down to the blue box where you will find the same resource as in the green box. However, this time it's specific to butterfly and moth species. On the actual website, there's a little butterfly icon. Click on that and that'll also take you there. Maybe you're an avid nature explorer and would like to provide a habitat for monarchs as they migrate. Wow. This allows you to identify them and see what they like to land on. So maybe not every butterfly or moth likes butterfly weed. This tells you what they do like, and if you happen to plant that and you're on their path, maybe you'll see more of them. Next, we have the yellow resource box where you can use an online tool called GrowVeg to apply your research on pollinators and native plant species to a visualization. In other words, you can draw it out. Let's say you have a spot in your backyard that just needs some help, and it's near a raised garden of your favorite vegetable plants. Unfortunately, there isn't very much biodiversity in your backyard. You have a lawn, you have your vegetables, but there's not a whole lot of flying insects coming around that can actually pollinate. So, your veggies have been very vegetative, but are lacking in the fruit department. You measure out your backyard, plan out whatever pollinator species you want to attract and are native, and need to present your idea to your parents or roommates to prove that this will be a fruitful endeavor. Pun intended. This visualization tool helps you do that. It also helps you actually plan out where to put things. But this tool gives you growing times for certain plants and so much more. So if you want something that would be flowering at a certain time, this is where you go. You can also do that through a quick Google search, but just letting you know. Unfortunately, with this tool, you have to work quickly because there is only a 7-day free trial, and then it is a paid subscription. But again, this part is optional. Paper and pencil work just fine for the same effect. This just gives you a digitalized means where all of the information is in one spot. So use at your own risk. The digital means has a more polished look, in my opinion. So use that, especially students that really like to work on the computer, or if you're doing this online, this would be a great alternative to actually having an outside space to map out. For the purposes of this project, I would tell my students to find 2 different pollinator species that are native to your assigned scenario and plant accordingly. Lastly, we have the light purple or pinky box that has specific scenarios to base your pollinator garden around. The Scenario Suggestions PDF has some of the suggested things to include in a pollinator garden for that specific area. But this is not an exhaustive list. So the scenarios there's 30 of them. So I made enough to where it'd be enough for a very large class and you wouldn't have any doubles. So it might be Texas Hill Country. It has this kind of climate. What would I use there? So I would use my native plant finder, put in the specific zip code that my scenario gave me to find what is native there. What can I plant? Then I want to see what butterflies and moths might be near there because I just love butterflies. So I go on that same native plant finder website and find what butterflies and moths are native, and I can start planting from there. As far as using the Maryland guide, that's where I would actually map out this garden, or in this specific case, a small garden or potted plant. It just depends on your space and the size of what you can actually do. Okay, now that we know how to utilize the resource hub for a pollinator garden, let's test to see if you are listening and allow you, the listener, to provide some feedback to me. Scan the QR code for a Google form. Pause this video to scan the QR code. Also, if you have any issues with this, please email me. My email is included with the QR code and on the next slide. Thank you very much for listening to the innovation of a resource hub for pollinator gardens. I am a future agricultural science teacher and drew a lot of my inspiration from my love of agriculture and teaching kiddos. This is me. Now you know the face behind the voice. Don't forget to fill out the Google form linked by the QR code. Back up this video to do that. All of the resources used in this video, including this PowerPoint, will be linked in the description below. All of my resources used within this video will be on the next slide as well. Happy creating! Again, these are all of my resources used within this video for this resource hub. Notice that this is based around Everett M. Rogers' Diffusion of Innovations book for the ALEX 640 class, and I adapted it to meet what I thought would be a great way to show an innovation in a reusable learning object.